Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name's Carl Chadwick.
Sorry, what's my line again? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a little while, hasn't it?
And I'm Daniel Patton.
And on today's podcast, I'll be talking with Matthew Tyrrell about the Cardiff 60th minisodes we shot and his new Prism Doctor.
And later on in the podcast, we're going to be talking to Peter Adams about his new Young Doctor audio series, Inquisition of a Timelord.
And before we get started, I'd like to thank our Patreons, Anya Coyle, TT Productions 23, Chelsea Lagan, Delta Effects, and Joe Eddings. So, Daniel, I would usually ask how this month has been, but I think we've got to ask, how's your year been?
Oh, yeah, because it's been a year exactly since I left the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, my year has been well, I got a job in the industry. I got married, as everyone knows. That's
because you took a month break for the wedding and then came back for one last one.
Yeah. And then I moved into my new house.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Anya and I am a whole year married. I've worked on some TV, worked on some feature films. Then I came back to the job a few. I'm still doing some bits and pieces every now and again, but I've settled into post-married life now, so I now feel comfortable returning to the podcast.
Oh, that's good, sir.
But also, for some reason, just two people wearing black suits put a cloth bag over my head, and now I'm reading off a script, and there's a phone in my family, so I'm too afraid to say no.
We told you not to mention them.
Send help.
Now, before we get started, obviously people are going to notice that it's a different host now. Obviously, it's not so different. You've simply returned, and the idea is that you're going to return for the foreseeable future. This isn't a one-off.
Yeah.
And obviously, there are some people who like the previous host, Eamon Longman, but I wanted to very quickly discuss that just because it has been announced and some other fan-related content or content creators have mentioned it a little bit more. So I just wanted to read out one of their statements that they made and then comment on how it affects Overton Audios as a whole. So the statement reads, after discussion between our members, the Kiwi Doctor story will end as part of the 60th anniversary celebrations, tied in with Overton Audio's work, and the final 3 regular episodes of his run will release beginning this Saturday. Further content announcements will follow. I really messed up reading that. But no, that relates to the Doctor Expansive Multiverse, otherwise known as DWEM, also known as DWEM, whatever you want to call it. Basically, Eamon has stepped back from recording the podcast and stepped back from that shared universe for, well, I was going to say for how long, but it's forever. We wish him well in what he's making. And you'll still see content coming out from Overton Audios that Eamon has worked on, whether it be writing or whether or not he's acted in them. That'll still be coming out as planned. But yeah, for now, he is not returned to the podcast, and Daniel is back.
I'm back, baby.
Yes, indeed. But you've been working in the industry. You worked on a show for is it BBC One or is it CBBC? But broadcast CBBC called Silver Point.
Yeah, it was season 2 of Silver Point, which was an interesting experience working in a post-production house. It's definitely something.
Yeah, it's also something as well from an outside perspective. You were telling me that you have to, what was it, like a 3-hour bus journey?
I had a 2-hour bus journey there and back each day, so essentially 4 hours of my day is dedicated to just the journey there and going home and back.
Yeah, and you were so tired, and it was so tired from it, and you were able to. I remember you were saying you had to do it 5 days a week, and it was just destroying you. And you were able to get a day off, weren't you, a week to be able to get some respite and everything like that.
Yeah, they eventually allowed me to have a day at home. Just to I was still working, but I was working from home. But yeah, it was really exhausting work towards the end, especially when we're getting towards those last few episodes, just because big stuff, and there's so many things going on behind the scenes of VFX that's insane. I've learned a lot from the job. Some things good, some things not so good, but it was definitely something I really want to do for years, and I'm glad I was able to do it. And it is something I'm still doing, but not to the capacity of that show. I don't think that's something I'm going to be returning to in the foreseeable future.
No, no. But then, of course, when you finished, you were able to suddenly experience what everyone else likes to call free time. And at the beginning of June, Dimension of the Daleks came out.
Yes, one of the unfortunate side effects of this job is that VFX became my job. And then when I came back, I was working on Dimension, which was majority VFX. So Dimension was delayed very significantly because of this.
Well, it's also a mental health thing, wasn't it? I remember you trying at the very beginning to do both, but you kind of got brain fog because you were doing visual effects at work and you'd come back and do more visual effects. It felt like you never really left work. I remember you telling me at one point.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's been a thing, like I didn't get back home until 8 to 10 o'clock at night. And then I have 2 hours till I have to go to bed to start the day off again. So it was
not
like
worth it.
no, and so unfortunately that's the main reason why Dimension was so delayed for that time. Even afterwards, whenever I finished the job and I was working Dimension again, it still took me a significant amount of time to get all the VFX done. I recently did a count of how many VFX there was in Dimension, if you want to hear.
Yes, I believe I remember the number, but remind me again, just in case.
All right, just for context, I think Tenet, the Christopher Nolan film, had 200 VFX shots.
Ooh.
Dimension of Dalek had 311 VFX shots. And it was less than half the runtime of Tenet.
See, I remember we once did an account on how many visual effects shots there are on Waterside, and that was around 300 as well, but that was 4 seasons.
Yeah. I did the equivalent of 4 seasons of a web show in one episode of this series.
Oh, God. Well, I think, didn't you say recently on a Instagram story that Marinus only has something like 40 or something?
Yeah, it only has about 40 VFX, but they're also still shooting it, so that could change potentially, but
oh, no.
what we got left to film, I hope not.
No.
But it's stuff that isn't.
This one scene you've got left to record just makes up the remaining 260 visual effects shots. You're like, oh my God. Every frame is a visual effect shot.
Exactly. Every frame is, we've got to put them into space, and every step they take, an explosion happens somewhere that has to be particularly organized.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Marinus, most of the heavy VFX stuff I've got Isaac helping me out with, which I'm very thankful for.
Isaac, otherwise known as Motion Idea Films.
Yeah, indeed. Or also known as the Navy Doctor in WEM.
Yes, he's known by many names.
He has been a godsend, to say the least.
Yeah, because he made that entirely CGI set with the Supreme Dalek, didn't he?
He did, yeah. That was something I was going to try and do myself, but with everything else going on, I just know I couldn't do it. It's the capacity that I know he could. So
yeah, because he made that whilst you were doing the job, right? And that took him a little while anyway.
Yeah, it did. Because in all fairness to him, I didn't give him an easy brief to do. It was like a good, like, I think it was a good 10 shots per scene, and he had to animate and render each one of those out, which I think nearly killed his computer. So I'm sorry, Isaac.
Well, I remember what I found really cool as well is you showed me like a little video of the storyboard that you'd drawn.
Yeah,
you'd drawn him a shot by shot thing, and he did it really, really well.
He did, yeah. I think that's something I really want to adapt going forward is storyboards, because they make things so much easier.
Yeah, but so you know how I said before the recording that I have my own little story that I wanted to tell you on the recording.
This, you want my reaction?
Yes. Well, in terms of what I've been doing for the month, firstly is that we've had a bit of a break. Obviously, the last podcast that was recorded, myself and Iman were together in person.
Indeed, yeah.
He was over for a few weeks, and he's flown back now. But it was generally not a lot was being done. I've started editing the 60th anniversary now. I'm almost halfway through it, and it's taken me a while to get to that point.
Yeah.
It feels like it's taking forever, but I also know it's necessary. It's got the largest cast I think I've
Ever?
ever had. Yeah, well,
Really?
it's a point where I can't even see the waveforms in Adobe Audition anymore.
Oh no.
It's just boxes. I'm having to kind of zoom in and then scroll up and down. That's how bad it's got. But nonetheless, so the other day, I think it was because today is Friday, the 1st of September, as of recording this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had I was on site on Tuesday with Dom, ironically.
Oh,
Because Dom works with us. Both in audios and also in real life work
yeah.
scenarios. But I had a phone call at about 8:40 in the morning from my grandmother. This is kind of
Yeah.
an estranged grandmother though. Um, I haven't really heard from her since pre-COVID. Not at least not verbally. I haven't heard her voice since pre-COVID. And she called me, just asked me if my bank details were still the same. And I said, yes, why? And then she just kind of went, okay, no worries. I'll call you later. And I said, okay. Then she hung up and went off. And she said she was going to go into town to visit the bank. And I said, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then about an hour later, me and Dom were working. It was 9:45, so we'd already started working. And I got a notification. And usually when I get notifications from my bank, it's money leaving my account. So like the notification came through saying, you have paid £1,000 to an account. And I'm like, I don't even have £1,000 spare. Who the hell have I paid this to? And I went on and I realized I misread the notification. I haven't paid anyone 1,000. I
Oh.
have been paid
Oh.
1,000. And I thought, well, it's the day before payday, or at least it roundabout was. It was close. I think no, it wasn't the Tuesday then. It was the Wednesday. I thought, well, it's close then. And I thought maybe I've just been paid a bit of a fragment because there's been stuff kind of, maybe. And I looked and it was from my grandmother. I had like been paid £1,000.
Oh.
But the problem is people would say I'm a pessimist. I'd say I'm just a realist. My immediate thought was, where's this money come from? Because
Oh.
they've always we've always kind of like even when I did talk to that side of the family, um, it was always a case of we were trying to get some money together to go on holiday and stuff like that. We didn't always have the money.
Yeah.
So considering that I've been estranged to them for a few years now, they sending me I only get like maybe £50 for every Christmas and birthday, and then we have like little chats around that time of year.
Mm.
But a grand, and
Yeah.
I thought firstly, if I usually get £50 every Christmas and birthday, excuse me, I thought maybe it's actually meant to say 100, and
Mm.
an extra zero has been put down. But then I looked at the reference, and it says BGC, which stands for Bank Gyro Credit. Bank Gyro Credit isn't digital banking. It's when you go in with cash or a check. So I immediately knew that this has been something done manually. So
Right.
it's not a digital thing where you type in the money to transfer through online banking. You've actually tapped zero 3 times instead of two. No, this has been done purposefully. And then I went very pessimistic again and thought, for lack of a better way of wording it, my immediate thought was, who's died?
Yeah. Oh, no one's died, right?
I haven't told you the whole story yet. You have to go on this journey with me.
Oh God. Okay.
Um, so I immediately thought, who's died? And I tried calling back my grandmother because she said she'd call me, but I left it an hour after that notification came in, and she hadn't called. So I thought, well, I'll call because I will just go, what the hell's happened? Her phone was off. Then I went, okay, we'll wait till lunch, and if she doesn't call, I'll wait till lunch. I waited till lunch. I called. Her phone was off. I called 3 times across that lunch break. Her phone was off. On my way home from work, I hadn't received a call from her. But in the evening, I tried calling. Her phone was off. I tried calling another 2 more times. Her phone was still off. Um, I then got a text from her at 8:50 in the evening, which was 12 hours and 10 minutes later, after the initial phone call,
What'd
and
you say?
it was just two blank texts, and it was like they were really long boxes. So part of me thinks that it used to contain text, and it's the same size as what the amount of text was in that box, but it's just like a very thin blank spot. And then I got two of those, and I responded going, "Thank you so much for the money. What's going on?" And but then no response. And I went, "Hi, you've sent me two texts that are blank. What?" And then no response.
Mm.
And then I'm sat there going, "What is going on?" I then decided to message my mum, who had then seen my message, and I did get a response from, but 12 hours later,
Yeah.
because I just asked, "How are things with the family?" And then she just told me about one of the old family cats dying, and I'm like, "Okay, well, any others? Like, any other like thing you need to tell me?" And then I've still not had a response to that. And then I randomly got a text from my granddad saying, "Oh, it was just a treat."
Right.
And I'm like, "So it took you 36 hours to tell me after sending me," like, the thing is, I spoke to my nan and I said, "What?" Like, when she asked for my bank details, I said, "Well, what's the occasion? What's happened?" And she just said, "I'll call you later about it." And I said, "Okay." And I thought it's going to be £100 or something like that, which is fine, and I'm very, very grateful for it. I just want to know what the occasion is. It wasn't. It was more than that, and it immediately got me thinking. The only time that sort of money gets released to you is in the bad event.
Well, at least yeah, that was
it,
definitely that was a roller coaster of a story.
I mean, I thought for a while, because I only heard from my nan. I thought, what's happened to Granddad?
At least you heard from your granddad and everything.
Then I heard from him going, "Oh, it's just a treat from us." And I'm assuming, well, you obviously, in that case, you've won some money, and you've thought to give me some. So thank you very much. Thank you. But please tell me the moment you do it, not wait a day and a half to tell me. Oh, can you hear that outside?
What was that?
Did you hear that noise?
I did not know.
Wow, this is a really good sound blocker microphone then, because I've got my window open, and there's obviously a road outside mine, and people tend to rev down that street annoyingly.
No, I don't hear anything.
Oh, perfect, wonderful. But anyway, that's my story. A very
Well,
chaotic one.
you're a grand richer and no relatives have died. I think that's a pretty good story.
Yes, yes, indeed. But you know what? Do you want to hear another story?
Oh, what story is this?
It'll be the story where I talk to Matthew Tyrrell about the Cardiff 60th Minisodes and the new Prism Doctor known as the Alacrity Doctor.
Oh, very nice. Let's hear that then.
I hope to all the people that I have been, will be, and could be, that someday you'll find me worthy to be the Doctor.
Oh, good. The eyes are working again. Wonderful.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. And I am here with Matthew Tyrrell. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing nice time actually. I'm here in person, which is
Yeah.
bizarre and unexpected.
Yes, it's all part of that big meetup. If those of you who maybe listened to the last podcast, myself and Eamon were sat together in person. We're coming towards the end of that big gathering now, and we finished the Cardiff Minisodes, as we call them.
After so long.
Yes,
we're finally here.
Obviously, we call them more. People are going to know them more as the Prism 60th Minisodes. But they're now finally out. We shot them on
the last weekend of January.
Yeah, I want to say 28th.
Yeah, it was around the 28th. Yeah.
28th, 29th of January of 2023.
Yeah.
And obviously within that, it stars myself as the Cravat Doctor, James Sutton as Captain Fraser Ward, George Gydra as the Blonde Doctor, and it introduces the incarnation after George Gydra, which is yourself.
Me.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, what was it now? So we're recording this on the 20th of August.
Yes, we are. We've taken the opportunity while we have it. So
Yes, exactly. And well, what you just before we start recording, you said the date that I actually cast
we October 2020. It was the 9th, I believe it was, when we did it.
So that's about 10 months.
Yeah, 10 months, and we planned the Cardiff trip pretty not long after that, like lots of days after. Like,
well, I know that I wanted to try and do some sort of trip. I know I kind of wanted to go to Cardiff again, because I hadn't been since I was 13, and I'd spoken to George about it at the time, and he said it'd be a nice idea, and obviously we had in the back of our minds everything that happened after the DW 2012 split. There were now gaps in the timeline that could be filled. I was aware that things were being done on the DW 2012 side where things were going to be reshuffled to make things work without us. Obviously I'll be removed from content, etc. Like that stuff's kind of obvious. I don't need to kind of ask anyone about that. But
it's a matter of just what's best for everyone, for every party going forward.
Oh yeah.
And this pathway is like it's provided a good if I want to say like a ramp off for both Prism Overton Audio side and the DW 2012 side. They both provided a very smooth exit for both parties.
Exactly, yeah. And then because this was an issue we had, in Fractured Timeline, the Dalek attack on London is something where it's very much pivoting on the Maggie May, companion to the Irish Doctor, her story where her brother died in the Dalek attack, and the episode came out recently, Dimension of the Daleks, which actually shows it. But obviously from a continuity point of view, that's a Luke Newman Little Red Doctor story from DW 2012, so we realised that we had a gap that we had to try and fill.
You'll be missing a lot of context behind it, and that's like it'll be a bit disconcerting because like obviously those particular videos where from DW 2012 are now lost to time, and
they're being remastered at some point too, so it meant that continuity might shift, and we were having our worries. Well, this is when we were part of DW 2012, by the way, but this gives us the opportunity to have to form our own continuity, and
the one that's like very streamlined and is able to like not have any sort of deviations from like a miscommunication, for example, about this particular event.
Obviously, for those who might not know, with the split, there were lots of miscommunications with continuity, which meant some of our things didn't work, and then with us, some of Luke's stuff didn't work, and it ended up being confusing. So that's why we ended up ultimately deciding to split, and therefore we can concentrate on our own continuities. But that's something that because we went through discussions about about what the Doctor meant to you. So I might as well ask you, what does the Doctor mean to you? What's your idea of the Doctor?
The way I see the Doctor is the Doctor is a character who is someone who should bring hope to everyone. Pardon that. Because there was this quote from it was said by George Lucas from an interview when they were doing when the last series of the Clone Wars came out. They did like a interview where they reflected back on it. And a quote was said from George Lucas saying, "Children are going to be watching what we make, so whatever you do, you've got to make these stories hopeful, regardless." And I think that really much applies to Doctor Who, because at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want with a Doctor Who story. You can have it lighthearted, you can have it dark, you can have anything, but like a key core element that needs to remain, in my view, you've got to make sure this is hopeful, because there's going to be someone who are out there, whether they're a child, a young adult, an adult, someone who's much, much older. They're going to need that, because trust me, I know, other people know, you people watching probably know it in some way. Like, you need to find hope somewhere, and I think that's is a very core principle of what makes the Doctor, and in my view, it's probably the most important one. Because you could have the Doctor is a brilliant character. You can have all of these different personality traits, different Doctors, but you need to make sure you have the core foundations of the character, and being the character that brings hope, especially, is something I see as just absolutely necessary.
Yeah, because we could obviously as well. The title of what your doctor title has been obviously announced in the Minnesota as the Alacrity Doctor.
Yeah,
it took a while to find that name because we were going for first, wasn't it the Joyful Doctor or the Cheery Doctor or something like that?
Yeah, well, when we actually sat down and Connor very kindly asked me to join Prism as the Doctor, I wasn't really sure what to do really, because something that I think is really important is making sure you're not following a trend. Because if you're more unique, it's going to be more memorable. And something that I think also is very important is making sure the content is memorable to have people want to connect. And if you are someone who's more involved, it's going to be more impactful to an audience member. So I was taking I had a really long think about this. When I took a thought about all of the current Doctors in the Prism timeline at the time, and I feel like there was I don't want to say it was a weakness, but there was I feel like there's a trend of I don't want to say sad Doctors, but the ones that we show a lot of them that have suffered and not had the best of lives.
Yeah.
Obviously, we see it a lot in the Blonde Doctor, who struggles a lot with their mentality and how they're feeling.
Yeah, George certainly wanted there to be a much more focus on the mental health element.
Exactly.
And the Blonde Doctor has losses that really affect him more so than any of the Doctors in Prism. I know that obviously he's doing the same thing currently at the moment with another version of the Blonde Doctor on Dwem and What Fourth Wall. He's doing a very similar vibe. Obviously, we're trying to make them as distinct as possible. I think we've talked about that before. But
they've got their own unique style, and that's certainly working out very well for them. So that was my thought going into this way of thinking. So, and I also thinking about fan content as a whole as well. And when I talk to when I have talked to other fan creators or listened to fan audios or people talk about their fan audios, a lot of them are just it's like a trend of people doing dark nitty gritty and nasty Doctors that have weird morals, and I'm like, okay, that's not a bad thing. Let me be very, very clear. But it made me want to feel like we need to focus on the core values and do something that is relatively unique, because from what I've seen, there's not many Doctors that are more in a positive mindset, if that's what I say. When we was thinking out the names for the Doctor stuff, we really didn't have a scoop. I didn't have a Scooby what we wanted to do.
We came up with keywords of description and themes and tried to build off of
we wanted to avoid things like colour as well.
Yeah,
we wanted to avoid that. We want, but at the same time, I didn't really want to focus on a piece of clothing because I didn't have a clue what I wanted for the costume. The costumes changed multiple times.
Yeah,
and so we went to focus on what I wanted. So I think a core value was trying to make sure we have that core pillar of having the Doctor be a hopeful character. That is the way I'm seeing it is not Alacrity. It means it's a more of a positive, happy sort of emotion, if that's the right word. So it's not there's no care in the world of anything. Let's say, I don't know, I'm not sure if it's the right description, but people Doctors like the 11th Doctor, it's not that kind of joy and happiness. It's more of being in more a grounded sense of optimism. And optimistic was one of our working titles for the Doctor when we was thinking about it. We hadn't really set down what we wanted. Yeah, we went through multiple changes, and I have to send a big thanks to my very best friend Gabs, who really, really helped me refine down what I wanted from this character, and helping me with the Doctor's name and some of the personality, and even helping me with my costume as well. And I want to take a big thanks to Gabs for that. So, as you mentioned.
I also remember a time, specifically the 8th of November last year, I was stood at a train station coming back from a site I was on, and I think I'd found the theme tune, and I sent it to you, and then because we think we'd found the name, I sent you like a little random quote that could have been said in the volume where the Doctor earns that title. If you know what I mean. I think it was something random like the I don't know if you remember it, like the creature saying, "You Doctor going through this universe with your alacrity in tow."
Well,
it was obviously I don't know. Obviously, that was just a random like riff to how it could fit in and how they're going. Oh, he said it. You know,
it's like a bit like Leonardo DiCaprio. We're like, there it is. That was.
It's like the way that Cravat talks about his cravat, and he's called the Cravat Doctor.
A cravat, very brave.
Or like for example, Blonde. Obviously, these stories were once part of the short trips with DW 2012, and have now become part of the What Fourth Wall lineup. But it's like the Blonde Doctor with haircuts.
Yeah.
Irish Doctor has the Irish heritage in there.
Yeah.
They've all got key things that earn them that title and why they're called that. With Alacrity, he's obviously joyful, but if you have him be criticised for it and then him be proud of it, I thought that would be good for something to do. You know what I mean? And that's something that I'm not going to get into too many spoilers about.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not.
But there's something in, for example, this leads into the Prism 60th.
It does.
So your Doctor is very much recovering from a regeneration. Mm-hmm. At the end of the Minnesota, has passed out with Cravat stood right in front of him and Fraser Ward holding him up. And we all know it's going to be a multi-Doctor story. The fact that us two are already meeting, it's going to be everyone else involved.
It's a good prequel which sets up the 60th quite nicely.
It's a nice sense of identity because we also wanted to, like you say, we were looking at like the tragic side, the tragedy, you could say, of the Doctor. And certainly after being the Blonde Doctor with the losses he felt, it's traumatic for the Doctor. And then to be surrounded by everything he was and everything he will become, is like basically meaning his past and future. I thought that would be really interesting to explore in a post-regeneration format.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not getting too much into what the story is and everything like that, but just as a sense of what to expect from this Doctor, and not to say that they're always without an identity, but just something to see how they will grow.
It's a finding oneself.
Yeah,
that's the way I describe it without really giving too much away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we did film some behind the scenes which you've never shown.
Yeah,
it's me like in a woolly hat, dressed in white shirt, cravat. Waistcoat, the long coat, and then another layer, then the gloves.
Yeah, because we were filming in Cardiff, and
6 in the morning, -5.
We woke up at 6 in the morning. It was freezing cold.
Filming for about 7 hours those Minnesotas, weren't we?
We like I didn't start until 11 o'clock, and we got there at like 7.
Yeah.
So we was all free. We was freezing. We was like coming in and out of. Me and Sutton were coming in and out of Sainsbury's, trying to find things to warm us up, and eating pastries while you all just try to get this thing done.
I was a frozen mess after that.
Oh, God.
I mean, everyone got their chances to jump in and out. I was out all the time. But yeah, it was just a mess.
The amount of clothing says it all.
Yeah, but like it's funny because again, for those of you who've watched the Minnesota, the moment that James Sutton steps off the slab and walks off at the end of Minnesota 1, in comparison to when we shoot the shot of him walking down going, oh no, that man's fallen over, I better go and save him. That's about 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it's a big... we spent a good while getting this mastered.
But I did enjoy the filming of it, as much as it was like, I was freezing. Looking at it back now and what we made, I'm proud of what we made. It's nice to make something visual again after so many years.
We definitely set out to accomplish what we needed for this sort of Minnesota prequel 60th. And we certainly got that. We got what we came for, regardless of all the challenges we had, especially when we was filming towards the latter half of things. When
it only started out originally being me, you, and George in Cardiff. We were just going to get a very small hotel for like a night or two, and then obviously Sutton was like, "I'm making Torchwood, and you're going to Cardiff, and you didn't ask." So then we're like, "Okay,"
that conversation,
and that's when originally it was only meant to be one Minnesota. It was meant to be one.
Was going to do the regeneration and straight back out?
And was I even meant to be in it?
I don't think he was meant to be in it properly in the initial version.
I might have appeared at the end going, come on, we've got work to do, or
Yeah.
something like that.
But then you became a more prominent role when we
Yeah,
came
because
towards
I got to think about that as well.
towards writing it.
All of these minisodes were written by James Sutton as well, which of course, James, if you are listening to this, thank you very much.
Yeah.
But like, because he wrote his Tortured minisode, but because we wanted it to be one big event, it had a time with all the others, so he put that all together. When it came to filming it, we made sure all the pieces came together, and then obviously, for those of you again who may be interested and enjoyed the minisodes, the 3-part minisode, I will be making a big master cut of it that will come out just before the 60th as a reminder, but almost like an omnibus, like a big previously.
Yeah.
But it's the event in order of which it happened. So, like in Minisode 3, when Cravat runs out and sees the lightning hit the Rift Tower, instead of showing his reaction and running off across the bridge, it would cut to George flying out.
Yeah.
It would be that specific. It wouldn't just be one after the other. It would be merged. The event would happen in chronological order. And I think that's what's...
I would also like to
interesting
make
to
a good mention to Connor's excellent directing skills.
Oh, thank you.
This is the first thing I'd filmed live action for like a Doctor Who fan project since I was making really, really bad fan films back in 2017 and 18.
Oh.
I was really nervous coming into it because
You say that was 10 years before. That was 10 years after I'd started doing that.
Yeah. Well, we all start somewhere. But like I was really nervous stepping back into things. I'd done a few audio things, but never done anything too long. I'd done like a few small roles here and there. This is the first big thing I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was really, really nervous when doing it. Like, I was speaking to George and Sutton about this when they were going in and out of the filmings. Like, look, guys, I'm actually quite anxious about this. Like, and when George wrapped up with his parts, and
because I didn't bring a tripod because we turned into a big meetup in the end, like loads of people.
we couldn't get like the
So
logistics.
So I had to stay still as George jumped in and you jumped out, and then only when I looked at the footage back home did I realise the continuity error that you're not wearing the tie.
Yeah. I was wearing an undershirt because I
see George was as well, but the problem is that he'd hidden it. The tie had hidden it. And because you hadn't put them, because we were trying to switch out so quickly and we were freezing, we didn't think about the tie. So then it's only for a split second. When you properly rise up, you are wearing the red tie at that point.
Yeah, we managed, like, again, I'd like to make another mention to sweet Daniel J. Patton for
lovely
doing absolutely incredible VFX. Mr. Chadders was showing me the full finished product recently, and Daniel's done such an amazing job, and like he Dimension of Daleks blew me away, as well as all of Daniel's other recent stuff. He's doing absolutely wonderful things, and I think it's definitely an honour for me to have Dan do this, considering back in the old days when I was actually watching these fan films. I was watching DW 2012. I was watching Fractured Timeline when I was a lot younger, and to have like this happen as well, it's definitely something that has made like an inner child happy. So Dan's done a wonderful job. It's some of his best work as we've come to see in Dimension.
Dan had done a lot of, if not all of the live action visual effects for Waterside, and we wrapped on that in 2019. So it'd been 4 years since he'd done any visual effects work for me. And he was really happy to see that we'd all come together to make something, and so he was more than happy to do it. Obviously, he's a very busy man, and if those who may not know, the reason, obviously, why he wasn't able to continue the podcast as the host anymore was because he took on a new job at a production house. And he's recently finished that contract. But thus being able to have the time to do this. But you know what I mean? Like, he was more than happy to do it and was able to find some time later on. We weren't. Do you remember when we? Remember when we said we'd have this out in May?
Yeah, I'm gonna do you one better here.
Right,
when we planned this out, we said like, let's get this filmed very quickly. Like, okay, the moment we get back, we're gonna start editing this. We can send it to Dan, and we'll hopefully have this done in March. Then it became May, then it became June, then it became July, August, and here we are at September.
Yeah, no, it was mainly
we're here now, though, which is the main thing.
And to remind those who are frequent listeners of the podcast, I think it was the February, maybe March. I think it might have been March, because I don't know, February or March podcast. I wasn't the main host on it at all, because I basically, I was very open about it on the next podcast. I'd suffered a big mental break during that Cardiff meet-up that weekend. just because I realised I was overloading myself with a lot of different things. So I didn't actually edit it until nearly 2 months until it was the month of our promised release.
Yeah,
I edited another thing.
Second week of March, I think it was. When
Yeah,
before the visual effects of we did anything. This is just like the
assembly cut.
Yeah.
And then we sent it to Dan for visual effects. Afterwards, we sent it to. Oh, we should also mention as well for the Tortured Minisode. Thank you to Anthony Tremaine for scoring it.
Definitely.
And for episodes 2 and 3, or parts 2 and 3 of the Minisode, thank you to Jed T. Rhodes for doing that. He's basically the main.
It's very good
composer.
to have both exceptional composers work on this project, because we worked with both Jed and Anthony, with Anthony Torchwood and Jed with the Blonde Doctor.
Yeah.
So to have them both involved in this project is definitely been a bonus and a treat for this. So it was very good to have them both on there, and they've both done a really, really good job with scoring these minisodes, and has really adding the final touches to something we've worked really hard on and achieved, and it's turned out quite nicely, I'd say. Yeah.
It's just, I'm not going to turn around and claim that this is the best collaboration, because I know that there are so many other collaborators out there. I feel like I'd be devaluing their contributions that they've made to the fan production community. But I am really, really happy with the collaboration we've had. We've had, James Sutton, writing it. He's also been doing behind the scenes, and you even did some behind the scenes when obviously you weren't filming. Same thing with George. Peter M. George, who plays Patrick Chaddy.
PMG was a lifesaver.
Yeah, he plays Patrick Chaddy, my companion, or I'm playing the Cravat Doctor. And he and I worked so closely together on Waterside. He was my first AD, which basically is like your PA. He basically tells the director, yeah, it's great that you want the artistic value, but we don't have time to do it because we can't be burning that money. And he kept me on the straight and narrow, because there were times where I'd get too cold, I'd just end up stopping. And he'd be like, no, come on, we have to push through it. Or there'd be times, trying to wrangle us all together from the hype of it,
That particular scene in Minisode 3, where we're all having a three-way conversation, a lot of us kept stuffing our lines, whether it was me, Sutton, or you. So
I don't
it took
claim
a while.
To be an actor.
And PMG was really helpful in helping us get over the line. We had to make a few just make sure we can get as close as we can to it as possible, and make it work. Because we were freezing.
It was getting on for about, because we filmed all the things we filmed last were just me.
Yeah.
Because then I could go all of you, apart from PMG, otherwise known as Peter M. George, go into the nearest cafe and get warm, because people were starting to freeze and turn. The lips were blue.
I had really bad. Some of you have seen the photos of after the aftermath, I got really bad lip sores after that.
Yeah, which of course, thank you for your sacrifice. I feel bad for that. I know we were all there by choice, but nonetheless, we never thought of it, did we?
Yeah, we wanted to go at a time where it wasn't busy, where the public wouldn't start
You can see towards the end of the final part.
Yeah, we had
lunch began for people.
Yeah, the boat trip guy as well.
We were filming right next to the entrance to a boat trip, and every time he would pull up, he'd shout for about 10 minutes. Anyone for a boat ride? Obviously, it's his only income. He explained to us. He actually spoke to us, didn't he?
Yeah.
When because we'd have to stop, and he would say, "Sorry, fellas, are you sure you don't want a boat ride?" And we go, "No," and then we'd ask, all this. We just got chatting to him, and he said that this is the only money he gets coming in. So of course, no problem. But it was like those little obstacles. And obviously, we did cut this out of the edit. But when you rise up from the regeneration, there's that random man in the background who just laughs really loudly. It just looks like he just watched you regenerating and laughed. Yeah. It was quite funny. So we did a lot of management with the noise as best we could. Obviously, you'll see that in part 1 of the minisode, called Solitude, James had to ADR his entire minisode because 7 a.m. wind was quite harsh, and the water tower.
The water tower was really, really picking up.
But we did ADR, and then I basically put together like it was an audio drama. So it all worked out in the end.
In that clutch.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy with how it all come out. I'm looking forward to what we do in the future as well. And obviously, it's only a couple of months now. By the time this comes out, it'll be September. Yeah, it's only 2 months to the 60th.
It's like we're now in single digits of weeks now.
Yeah, I think even right now it's 10 weeks.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Like as of the
God.
20th, yeah.
Oh my God.
We're on like double digits now.
Like we're closer than we think we are. And
yeah.
We've got a really good lineup leading into 60th, which I think is good. And these episodes definitely complement that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, in that case, thank you very much, Matt, for being available to record the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Oh no, of course. And farewell.
Bye-bye.
Her name.
Julia Breslin.
The greatest assassin in the universe, in fact.
The Crimson Hunter.
And welcome back to the podcast. And we're going to do some comments reading, aren't we, Daniel?
Oh, lovely. I missed me some comments reading.
Yes, I'm going to read in for the first 3 episodes of Ascension. And then, Daniel, you'll be reading the comments for Divergence, episode 8, and then the Changes Now teaser, which relates to the Cardiff minisodes that have, by this time this comes out, have just come out.
Yes.
Indeed. So, here we go. So, starting with episode 1 of Ascension, Ghost of the South Pole, part 1. We have a comment here from Michael Cox saying, a great start to Doctor Who Ascension. The base under siege trope is always a winning formula because it leaves plenty of scope for other things to develop, whilst the main threat is yet to be revealed and defeated. I like the dynamics between the characters of Wright and Houston. It will be interesting to see how their reliance on each other grows and what else may come with it. Yeah. And then we have a comment from, well, he used to be called CSP, but he's now become MMS. It's Thomas Aidan James.
Oh,
he has commented saying, the cravat era is back, and Ascension starts off strong with what I think is a brilliant first episode. Honestly, I got major 60s Troughton era vibes from this episode alone, which I really admire the show for doing, and for this episode to basically feel like a tribute to that. Sure, you could have gone with the route of skipping it all just to get to the good stuff, but I'm glad that Charlie has taken the time to write something with some really enthralling characters in just 23 minutes. Some people, even myself, seem to have this problem sometimes, but Charlie has really gotten this one down to a T. I really hope that part 2 follows on with more of this enthralling story, but who knows, except for Connor, who edited it. Thank you very much, both of you, for those comments. It was something that was a bit of a risk when making that part, because the Doctor and companions are in the opening of the story, and then they cameo as little ghosts, like, throughout, like, because it's a temporal anomaly happening, and they're trying to break through. And when they do break through, it's at the end, and they're the cliffhanger. So the whole story is a Cravat Doctor story without any of them in it, and it's been like nearly an 8 to 9 months gap since the last Cravat story. So it's almost like we're kind of holding back a little bit.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Nonetheless, moving on to episode 2, which is Ghost of the South Pole, part 2. And we start with a comment from MMS saying, I loved this second part. Despite it being a lot different to the first, it flowed along nicely. Good to see Cravat, Professor Traddy, and Patrick Traddy finally back in the spotlight. And I really like the villain. Reminded me nicely of The Wire, and as Michael has mentioned, which is Michael Cox in a previous comment, the sentient sound wave is like from the one from the Whispers of Terror. Really thrilling stuff. Honestly, if you kept this story going for another 2 episodes, I would have been entertained, especially with the Investor. I wonder if he'll be the villain of this box set. However, I do want to say I noticed a couple of moments that were similar to my Series 4 episode of Void and Time. Nothing too damning, don't you worry. But it didn't puncture my enjoyment for this episode. It just felt oddly familiar at points. I'm trying to remember what points they were. What of Void and Time? It might be because in the Of Void and Time, it was Cravat and Carly, and they went to a mountain where there was a small crew of people on the mountain, and then one person betrayed them all, and then everyone was a bit flawed and easy to turn on one another. It might be that, I think. I don't know. But nonetheless, we'll move on to another comment from Michael Cox saying, a great resolution to this action-packed adventure. The characters are sympathetically drawn and their interactions hit all the right notes. Big Finish explored the idea of a sentient sound wave in its 1999 production, Whispers of Terror, and although the Gelée share a passing similarity to that, the key thing which unites this story is the fascination with the power of sound, one of the fundamental features of our lives. I would hope that we hear more of the Gelée at some point, as there is great mileage in them. See, that's true. I was thinking about that when I read this comment originally. I was thinking about what more could you do with this, because I think it'd be a really interesting concept to explore sound that way.
Yeah, like signed as like the sort of like as a villain.
Yeah, and what you can do with it, like, could you make someone's voice a weapon?
Yeah.
That sort of thing is what I was wondering. And then lastly, we have a comment from YOLOcast Kirk, which I believe is the writer. And they've said, after all these years since writing it, it's so amazing to listen to this. Wonderfully done. Thank you so, so much. Yeah, I forgot this. Ghost of the South Pole. Charlie Patrick's his name is. He wrote this in 2019.
Oh, really?
Do you remember Schiller's Delicatessen?
Yeah.
He wrote that. And then immediately after said, can I write another Cravat story? And I said, sure. And he wrote this, but it had the companions, Patrick and Professor Chadian. And then I wanted Cravat to have a break for that 1 year, in 2021. And then he came back with Cravat Doctor and the Rani. And then Earthbound is when they got introduced in 2022. And now here we are with the first Cravat volume in 2023.
Yeah.
Oh,
very nice.
Moving on to episode 3, the last one I'll be reading in for now, which is Depths of the Wirren, Part 1. Which is written by Eamon Longman. Harry Gosling has commented, that enraged Wirren's scream was brilliantly performed. And then Dragonside Entertainment has responded saying, well, I had to go big with the Wirren, which is Dragonside Entertainment is Eamon. Michael Cox commented going, I know we fans chuckle about the bubble wrap, but I do remember watching the Ark in Space as a 5-year-old and being scared of seeing the metamorphosis of Noah into a Wirren. The Depths of the Wirren gives me that same kind of vibe in a terrifying tale populated with interesting characters played very well by a good cast. What's particularly good from a dramatic point of view is that whereas when he faces the Daleks, the Doctor usually has a solution, but with something like the Wirren, the matter is not so easily resolved. Of which Dragonside Entertainment has commented saying, one of the many reasons why I love the Wirren, it's such a cool concept and it's a shame that the modern series hasn't utilised them yet. And those are all my comments. Well, there is one other comment from someone called DPR567-DK1DE, and they commented a thumbs up.
All I can imagine, all in my head is, in episode 7, BB-8 does the lighter thumbs up.
Yes. After all that code I've read, I'd hope so. Anyway, you've got some comments, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. I shall start out with Divergence episode 8, A Fantastic Day Out, by myself, you, and Eamon as well. So we'll start off with Michael Cox. A great reimagining of the Dr. Fionn Nathan story. Sadness, it seems, hangs over them, whichever universe they inhabit. Yes, Michael, we make sure that they are very unhappy.
Yes.
As per every other Divergent episode, I liked it. I really liked the simplicity of this episode. It wasn't big, fantastic, and it just felt right. A family story, family is broken apart, and it was beautiful. No other words could capture it. Also, another Wirren story.
Yay! Wirren.
And we also have Changes Now, which is the trailer for the minisodes that just came out.
Yes.
We have from Something Blue Audio just saying it was lit.
Lit.
The word lit, L-I-T, lit.
Oh, I'm glad they thought it was lit well.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad it was illuminated. Or else you wouldn't be able to see it.
Yes. God, I'm a very old man.
Do we have Up North Southerner, which I believe is Peter and George, right?
It is.
Peter. He says most intriguing.
Yes, I hope so.
Then we have Spooky's Everything 6153. So looking forward to this. Then we have Michael Cox saying Overton Audios live action drama. Absolutely wonderful news. The problem is YouTube only lets you leave one thumbs up. So you'll have to take my word for it when I say if I could, I'd leave many.
Oh,
Michael's always very nice.
yes, he is. He is. He's a lovely man.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, yeah, finally some live action content from Overton Audios.
Yes, indeed. It's been it was quite interesting for example, especially when we filmed these, as we've been calling them, we've just like given them the code name Cardiff minisodes. But it was really nice to film that 3-parter. We also filmed a couple of other things as well, which are coming up much later with other releases. We've just filmed them now because if we left them too long, people really would look different, you know.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
So we've had to do it to match the time, because obviously the photos we use in the cover art are going to be them when they look like that in the story.
Yeah.
So it's a way of being able to film minisodes without having to worry about aging. So we've filmed another one in Cardiff. That's coming out maybe another year or two. So we'll see how that one is received. Also, there was one we filmed for TT Productions as well. Because if you look at the vlog, Abi Louise was there as well as James York, who plays the queer doctor. So there is a little TT thing happening there, which I don't know if it will have been announced yet or not. I don't think so. So yeah,
all is to be revealed.
Oh yes, this is true. It is to be revealed. Yes, indeed. But yes, so shall now that we've read out some comments and everything like that, shall we go and speak to Peter Adams about the new Young Doctor 10-part series, Inquisition of a Timelord?
Oh, yes, please.
Overton Audios presents You Have Broken Many Laws of Time.
I've been here for nearly 300 years.
As this version of yourself, you have done things in the past, and you will go on to do things in your future.
We've just taken the TARDIS to settle on Earth.
Settle?
She went through a lot after the dream room.
Oh, we had to intervene when we detected your arrival on this planet. Your friend is nearby.
Intervene? What's going on here?
Listen up.
Don't argue, you look about 13.
Well, I'm not, so...
How did you get in?
All of the knowledge in the universe.
That must be protected as much as the universe itself. It's a principle of living.
Let's show you 2 events.
No. What's happening here?
Well, I'm Hazel, and this is the Doctor.
Are you feeling unwell? Has your suit leaked?
Oh, no, it's just... your mechons. A giant hornet from the venom sacs of the Quantius Nebula. Quite disastrous.
What is it?
1889, Paris. We're in the middle of La Belle Epoque. Find your way back to the TARDIS. I'm going to stop the hornet, then I'll come and find you.
Doctor!
Have I been kidnapped?
Kidnap? I would not do such a thing, sir.
He's an extraterrestrial, using Gustav as a way to create the Eiffel Tower to do what?
How dare you defy me again?
Doctor Who, The Young Doctor Adventures, Inquisition of a Timelord, coming the 23rd of September 2023 at 12 p.m.
I guess they have to leave some Doctor behind for us civilians.
Yes, exactly that.
You're the youngest Doctor I've ever met.
Yes, I do have people telling me that.
And welcome back to the podcast. And I'm sat here with Peter Adams. Hello, Pete.
Hello there, Travis.
How have you been?
Very well, thank you. Yeah.
Very good.
I had an entire 10-episode marathon of recording at the time of speaking, so...
It's very rare that we do recordings like this, because usually we do all the recordings and in the months, maybe even a year later,
oh, yeah.
I ask you to talk about it and you're like, I have to reread the scripts.
Yeah, so in many cases, we're kind of having to go back over old things, like going through, it's like archaeology almost, sort of digging back through your social media posts and stuff and thinking...
Trying to find the files on Facebook.
Looking for them hidden somewhere in the ether, and then
just
trying to remember that frame of mind as you do it, whereas here, we've literally just recorded them over the last, how many hours? 2 hours, 3?
Yes, it's just turned 1.
Yeah, 10 episodes just straight off.
Yeah, I don't know how, but the recording of the first 5 took us an hour, and then it's taken us 2 hours to do the remainder.
Yeah, it's funny, and I don't think we did anything terribly differently necessarily.
I think because the script lengths were slightly different, but there was more of you talking.
Like, there's one of the episodes just did a scene where I had to do a speech at the end, and I saw the lines as they popped up on the screen. I was like, oh god.
It didn't come up on the recording, luckily, but there was a point. What was it? The last speech at the end of episode 8, where you do that long speech about life and death and just life moving forward. And I scrolled down thinking, because when it overlaps onto the next page, I thought it would only be 2 or 3 lines. I scrolled, it was half the page.
Yeah.
Did you hear the noise I made?
I don't think I did, but I think that would have thrown me off if I did.
Yeah, I just kind of, I very much heard myself going, oh. Because I suddenly thought, you started off with a large paragraph anyway, then a bang at the other side.
It sent me straight back to school days, because my English teacher got us to do Macbeth one year.
Oh.
And it came at the time when the government was saying, oh, school kids can't do Shakespeare. And then we literally went and did Macbeth. And
what do you mean they said, what do you mean they can't do Shakespeare? What, you can't learn it or can't?
I think they would just say, oh, the education system's so terrible that kids can't do Shakespeare. And then we were like, well, let's see if we can do it. And we did.
Fair enough.
But the thing that reminded me of that was just opening the script and seeing these massive paragraphs of text, having to memorize them every day. And the funny thing is, when I did the first of the 2 shows we did at school, I actually forgot a large chunk of my lines.
Oh.
But the brilliant thing is, nobody noticed, so I got away with it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, everyone was much more distracted by other stuff happening on stage.
But yes, I don't know, I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, but this year will be the last year you play Young Doctor.
Yes, it's been quite a journey. I started playing the Young Doctor as he was at the time the 11th Doctor back in 2007.
15, 16 years now.
Yeah. Oh god, 16. 2007. I constantly have to keep reminding myself when that was, because that's over half a lifetime ago now.
Yeah.
And for me, that will always be, it was just a couple of years ago. But now it's like people.
It's more than half our lives ago now.
People have been born in that time and are now just about getting old enough to learn how to drive a car.
Young adults.
That's terrifying.
We sound like such old men, but we are in a way. At heart, we are.
We're like the 2 old men in the Muppet sitting in that in that theatre booth. Like,
well, this is something I don't really talk about much, which is that you and I met in late summer, early sort of autumn sort of time doing fan films.
Back in the day, on
2007.
YouTube. It was back in the day when YouTube was very different to how it is today. I think it was much less
brand based.
Yeah, it was less glossy. Things were much clunkier.
Did Google have it? Google had it by then, didn't they?
Just before, I think.
I couldn't remember if it was 2006 or not.
It was back in the days when you could customize your YouTube page and make the colours. It was a very bland colour palette. Like you could make I'm making my YouTube page red or blue, and I think I remember seeing a chunk of your stuff and then hitting you up on going into your DMs and just
that's what I say nowadays.
Yeah, as we would say. This was back in the day of MSN Messenger, so I think a lot of our communications back then wouldn't have been over WhatsApp or whatever it is like we do now.
No, it was MSN.
It was MSN, which is even weirder because that's such an old thing now. Nobody uses that.
No, they don't. I think it's still around, but they've actually incorporated it with the email browser now that you can email. It's no longer you have to have contacts. They've incorporated MSN with what Hotmail was. So now it's like a merger that you have the Messenger in the Hotmail browser page now.
Yeah.
Which I don't think anybody uses anyway.
Well, I've stopped using because.
But why would you message someone when you have email?
I know. Yeah, that's the whole point of email. Yeah,
like instant messaging and everything is great, but
I don't think they thought that through.
No, why would you put a messenger in an email?
Yeah.
Oh dear. But no, so basically, it started. I know we've gone through the story a million times, but this will be our last chance to go through the story one more time.
One more time, for old time's sake.
But obviously, when it started, we had no idea that obviously we'd be sat right here recording more all this time later. It was just our own stuff. I played my own version of what the 11th Doctor would be, as did you. And it was only really when I started making audios that I kind of wanted to. I think it was early 2018. I said I asked you, could I do something with the Mechons? And I incorporated Bartok, who was a character from the original 2008 story Age. Is it Age?
Age, yeah.
And that's when I started thinking about, because at that point I joined that kind of shared universe with DW 2012, and I thought about going, well, we can add a couple of people and stuff like that. And that's when I asked you, would that be all right to merge and remaster the audios? And then, of course, what came with that was when you remaster them, I still think I could have done so much better with them, in the sense that I just used the original audio. I could have just got people to I could have just got yourself to re-record, but because we didn't have the other act who played Josh, it's only really recently, as of recording this at the moment, it was only yesterday that Divergence episode came out with a recast Josh. That's how far in advance we're recording this. This won't be until September's podcast, by the way.
Oh wow! Yeah, I mean it's.
But it's good that we're recording it now because
yesterday was April Fool's Day.
But yeah. So as a result, we just joined that way, and then I think I had ideas for some new stories to kind of add on to it. You were at a point where you weren't quite ready to sort of look back to the character again. So we had somebody else step in who's now mysteriously gone missing.
Gone AWOL.
I'm happy saying that publicly now, because there was I'm not going to say the whole thing because that would just be a little bit too much drama. But essentially, the actor who played the young Doctor originally, James M. Dean, the reason he didn't come back was because he just disappeared. I don't know where you are if you're listening. I still don't know where you are. We've spoken briefly since you were in Sherlock Holmes, and I still don't know where you are.
Thank you for voicing the young Doctor while I was away. I've never met you before. It's like that scene from Family Guy where Lois is like, I don't know who you are, but thank you.
Yes. But no, that's when that came up, and I said to you, for this one volume, would you be happy to do it? And then, of course, I realised that I had the Federation War stuff, which, of course, was just a one thing anyway. And then that was really where it sat for a little while. It was just that volume, and it was just that volume and that episode from Federation War. But then, of course, I've made Divergence, so I said, would you be happy to do that? And then, of course, we talked about it over... Actually, no. Yeah, because it was at the beginning of lockdown. You found the original footage for Inquisition of a Time Lord episode 3.
Yes.
Because this is something I don't think I've mentioned as well. This is based on something you made late 2008, early 2009.
I think it was around the time that the BBC released the box set for Trial of Time Lord. A friend of mine and I, we were watching it and thinking this would be a really good thing to sort of do a riff off of. So we did our own version called Inquisition of a Time Lord.
Yeah.
We did the 2 episodes at the end of 2008.
Which was Rise of the Chimera, which is what we've recreated for this.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically like a Halloween story split over 2 parts, and we filmed the first part on Halloween, and we actually had a real set of kids trick-or-treating in one scene, which was really fun.
Yeah.
And then the second half, next morning, everything's cold, it's November, different attitude, different atmosphere completely. And then we kind of waited a bit to do the 3rd, and that one was a year later almost.
A year later? So late 2009?
Yeah, so towards the end of PDF and Triple J.
See, I thought, obviously I'm wrong, but I thought it was a case that you filmed that one, the first 2 episodes late 2008, and then on the other half of Christmas you filmed it early 2009.
No, we waited a bit.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, we there was a fallout. So me and Joseph fell out for about 6 months or 7 or something, and
then you came back and decided to continue this.
Yeah, and then for about a few months in the summer of 2009 we did lots of non-Doctor Who stuff, and that was fun. And then towards the end of the year we thought, let's pick up on Inquisition, because we need to kind of not wrap it up necessarily, but just do like a sequel episode, because this seems like something fun we want to carry on with.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, well, it's been 40, at the time it was 2009, so 40 years since the moon landing. I happened to have one of these copies of like a fake newspaper from 1969. And so I came up with an idea for something around that. And then I went around to his house. He happened to have a neighbour who had a house that looked like a 1960s house with a car outside. It looked very authentic. So we thought, let's film around there. Let's film around the local college to make it look like a 60s setting. And end up creating a Sontaran story without intending to. Like, it was all very last minute. But then for about 10, 11 years, the raw footage sat on a hard drive because we stopped making films together. We did our GCSEs. We fell out of touch. He ended up
Life continues.
He ended up giving me the hard drive and never asked for it back, so I've still got it.
Oh, right.
And
it's not one of those old hard drives where you move it, it rattles.
It's one of those ones where it has lots of plugs. I have to plug it into mains electricity to use it. And
that hard drive there, I have to do the same with.
Yeah, it's got massive amounts of stuff on it, and no surprise, it's got lots of other fan-filled stuff on there from ages back. But the raw footage, it was like something like 30 minutes worth of raw stuff.
Wow.
Outtakes. Some of the clips were a bit glitchy, but yeah, I didn't really get a chance to look at it properly until lockdown. I was on furlough.
Yeah.
I didn't have much to do, so I thought, I want to try and edit that episode because it's been years. And when I did, I was like, but the trouble is I don't remember whether the clips were all intact. I couldn't remember if we actually had a plot. I didn't think we had a script, so I can't go back to that to see, okay, we did actually finish the story. So I sort of thought, I'm going to start on this, and if I get to the end of it and can't find an ending, I'm going to be really sad. Because it will be the biggest sort of waste of time ever. It'll just be like,
I still think it was wonderful because it made us rethink this. Because I always said it was like going to be a whole 10-part thing anyway. And we've tried to keep it as accurate to what it was. Obviously, when we talked about it, you said you didn't remember not every story was planned anyway, but you knew what the ending was. You've then, around that sort of time, you put forward 2 ideas, which was the genesis of the Mekon story and the La Belle Epoque story, and you put that forward and sent them to me. I held on to them forever, and then I sent one day when we decided, now is the right time to make it. I sent one to Aidan O'Connor and another one to Eamon Longman, and just said, pick one. Which one do you want? And Aidan loves the Mekons, and he didn't know what to do about the French history episode, whereas Eamon's all over that.
You see, I'm trying to find the original thing I would have sent you, but where is it?
But also, if anyone follows us on social media, if you go to the Instagram, go on the highlights and click on miscellaneous, the first thing you'll find is me watching the edit.
I've literally just found the original pitch that I sent for it. So this would have been...
Well, let's not spoil it.
I mean,
let's not,
I mean, doesn't it? It just includes a basic sort of...
Well, yeah, because you didn't specify companion, did you?
Yeah. So this was basically like a cookie cutter Doctor Who pitch. I came up with an idea for the Doctor and a nondescript companion just going off on his adventure. The first one was La Belle Epoque. The Doctor takes a companion to Paris, 1889, at the height of France's Belle Epoque era, just before the grand unveiling of the Eiffel Tower. A sinister alien presence is reanimating the dead on Montmartre and intends to use the Eiffel Tower to transmit a signal to allow an alien invasion. And so the Doctor and his companion have to team up with Gustave Eiffel, the creator of the Eiffel Tower, to foil the plot. And didn't go into much more detail, it was just like a paragraph pitch. And then the second one was Genesis of the Mekons. So the Doctor and his companion are hovering over a mysterious planet when the TARDIS is shot down and makes a crash landing. The pair are capturized. That's a brilliant new word. The pair are captured by a militarized scientific team of aliens and learn that the planet has been devastated by nuclear radiation. To his horror, the Doctor realizes it landed on the planet Mek at birth of the Mekon race, and that's it.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. Like you basically gave enough for people to kind of try their own thing, whilst also still keeping to the core of it. Other than that, we still kept the original stories. Like episode 1 and 2 were Rise of the Chimeran. Episode 3, which you edited over lockdown, was the Life Principle. That one changed a little bit. It's not Sontarans in the end, but it's you still quite enjoyed the new concept that it was anyway, which was a kind of mould.
Yeah, so I followed the mould.
The mould.
That was a mould. The story changes a bit from the Sontaran one. It's still got this kind of academic university setting, which the Sontaran one had, but the Sontaran one was more like a sort of, oh, let's talk to a crazy professor. Oh dear, what's he got in his lab? And it's like weird signals, and he's tracking an alien pod, and then, oh, look, he's got this blob of stuff in his lab, and he's trying to reanimate it. So the Doctor's more than happy to help, and it turns out it's like a Sontaran alien eggshell.
Yeah, like a clone.
And he's basically hatched this deadly Sontaran who tries to sort of invade the world, and whereas this life principle story, it's much more. It kind of reminds me a bit of Knock Knock. Doctor Who Knock Knock from season.
We've got a group
10.
of students.
Group of students.
And the professor as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've got the doctor and companion.
Yeah.
Like, oh no.
There's a particular word during the episode that I had to briefly pause to see how it was pronounced. Capsaicin?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this spice that comes up in the script, capsaicin. And the only reason why I know about it is because I think when you go to Nando's and you look at the writing on the wall, it talks about the kinds of spices they use, and I think I've seen it there before. But I looked at it in the script and I was thinking, capsaicin? And I had
to quickly get Google up,
I had to get the voice Google thing up to make sure I pronounced it correctly, because I'm always perfectionist and those sorts of things. But that was a fun one.
But yeah, we've been talking about Inquisition even before lockdown. We kind of thought it would be nice to make that at some point if we have the time. But then when you did that re-edit for me, it was like, right, that's going in the schedule.
Yeah.
It was like just a case of we knew that we hadn't made Volume 3 yet. And then the Volume 3 we knew wanted to be the end. So I thought, well, maybe we'll get round to it. Like, we leave it a little while for the dust to settle after the end of the story, and then maybe we can jump back and do something. And I think what we've done with this is really, I think I'm quite proud of what we've been able to achieve with something that still feels fresh and new and still has stakes for the Doctor, even though we know that he makes it to this point. It still has some elements of how does he get out of these situations, and of course the stories are reflective of his entire era. So 10-part series, 2 parts each. So you've got the first 4 being 2 stories about sort of like him from the Chronicles era, and then episodes 5 to 8, another 2 stories being from the Adventures era, and then you have the last 2-parter really exploring him now, which is his Inquisition era. Obviously, it's intercutting between other little bits because he's having to, like you say, it's based on trial of a Time Lord, but it's something we knew we couldn't just remake it again, didn't we? We had to kind of have a twist to it, and I think we've achieved that. What
it does in the middle, which I really love, just reading through the scripts, was just like in Trial of a Time Lord, there's that point where it gets the terror of the Vervoids, and depending on how you view it, because there's an editor bit where you can do this, you can just see it as a standalone story in its own right. And sometimes it's quite nice. The trial thing, it's fun at the beginning and the end because that's the sort of story arc. Yeah. But then in the middle, if you're a casual listener and you just want to have a good romp, stories like things like La Belle Epoque and the Mekon story.
Yes.
Those are both standalone in their own right. But the only thing is, the Doctor is sort of peeking into the future. He's peeking behind the curtain, and he feels really weird about doing that, and he admits that. And as a time traveler, that must be really a quite unsettling thing. It's
well, maybe like after this comes out, we'll have a look into making versions of the edits, because essentially I've kind of treated this series as almost like in the Sarah Jane Adventures format, where it's 2-parters and they're shorter, but when you put them together, it makes like a 45 to 50 page script.
Yeah.
So and these will be coming out twice a week. I just realised this is going to be something where I have to try and announce the dates of said thing about 5 months before it's coming out for us. Right, so yes, so it starts coming out on the 23rd of September and it's twice a week until the 25th of October. So it's only a month, but it's twice a week. So you have Wednesdays and Saturdays. Didn't Doctor Who have that on Wednesdays and Saturdays?
Yes, so traditionally up until 1981, Doctor Who was a Saturday tea time slot. And then John Nathan Turner, I can't remember what the reason was. I think they wanted to try and make sure the ratings were good. And if they kept it on a Saturday, it was going to go up against, not $1 Million Man. It was one of those 80s shows that did very, very well. And so they shifted it from a weekend Saturday tea time slot to Tuesdays and Wednesdays or something. So for the Peter Davison era, Doctor Who wasn't like a Saturday tea time fixture for kids. It was a midweek thing during the school run. So you get back.
In a way, we're keeping true to it by referencing trial by having it be Wednesdays and Saturdays.
So it's back to the 80s basically. With this slot.
Well, that's nice, I think.
That's fun, yeah. But what's weird is September. That's for us, that's almost 6 months away. So we've got the whole of the summer to wait until.
We've got all the summer to edit it.
Yeah, so it's,
I've got so
there's
much.
a lot of clips. Yeah, so much dialogue.
A lot of cover arts to ask people to make.
Yeah,
that's the thing. This is me. Like this is what people don't hear from me. Because whenever I talk about it with people, it's after it's already been made, edited, cover art made. This is me right now going, you're the one who's recorded and done. I've still got to get everybody else recorded at this stage.
Exactly.
So I'm like,
herding cats.
Yes,
especially
very much.
With La Belle Epoque, Connor was just talking about this earlier. He wants to get it as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
So he's looking for French actors to try and play the roles of the characters.
When this comes out, it'll be too late to put a casting call out, sadly, on this podcast. But
So if you're hearing this, chances are...
Too late.
Sorry, you missed it. But we will be looking for...
Well, yeah, because I told you I made that story with the Irish doctor called, I think it was called In the Blood, and it was set in South Africa with the slave camps in from where it was. It was in Cape Town near. Mm-hmm. There was another area in Leon, I think. Okay. But yeah, I just made sure that obviously there's 2 Irish characters in it anyway, but I really wanted to make sure it was authentic as possible because I really liked it when that's attempted. Because obviously with the show Doctor, you can get away with having British accents, but also the point is that they also look the part, so you accept it. In audio, if it's just a Londoner saying "Monsieur, Monsieur," it's like
yeah, you can kind of tell. It's like "Monsieur, Monsieur." Yeah,
because in audios you have to judge by what you hear, and obviously you're going to hear the sounds of French music from the La Belle Epoque event.
Yeah,
but if everybody there is just from England, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it adds a level of authenticity having a real French speaker saying "Monsieur."
Yeah,
at least
yeah. I can just have a little look around and I'll find someone eventually. I've got a finite amount of time, but I'll get there. Yeah. Yes. Is there anything else you wanted to mention at all whilst we're here?
Just thank you for asking me to be involved in this. It's been a long journey, 16 years since I started making these, and I think what this has done is it's done justice to the Inquisition of a Time Lord series, because it started off as something quite small in some ways, 3 episodes, one of which was never edited until quite recently. And if there had been more time, more money, more... Well, not necessarily money, because it's like when you're a kid, you're just picking up a camera and filming whatever you want. I guess more...
Time and dedication.
Time and dedication, just sort of to get masks and props and stuff together and locations. But this audio feels like it's done justice to that. It's filled it out, added some extra stuff, and taken the journey not just from Earth, but to Mech, to Paris, 1889, to all over the place, Liverpool as well.
And then the first episode is set back in October 2008, where it started.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a nice bit of back to it all began.
Yeah, that's wow. Well, thank you very much, Pete.
My pleasure.
And thank you for doing the lines that you just did.
Thank you.
So, see you in 6 months.
Is anybody out there? I am calling out to those still out there. This is a guardian of time.
And welcome back to the podcast. And we're doing some Big Finish discussions with Abi Louise. Hello, Abi.
Hello, Connor.
How are you?
I'm good. Are you well?
I am well. Now, we were kind of stuck on what to talk about because, for those who know anyway, or follow one of our monthly vlogs, we had a very busy month of meeting up with people. So I'm still trying to catch up a little bit, but I have done quite well so far, just not entirely caught up with everything. We were hoping to talk about Diary of River Song Series 12. I'm not there yet. I'm still on the Torchwood. I'm still on Torchwood Sigil. Then I have the Once and Future 4, and then it's River Song. But we thought about, because it came out, I think today or yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
The new Colin Sixth Doctor box set, Purity Unbound. Now, whilst I've not listened to that because that's just been added to the list of stuff I have to listen to, I thought we'd talk about the arc so far because I thought that's something we could talk about. So this will be the fourth one out, and I assume if we're going off of Big Finish rules, they usually do storylines in fours.
Yeah.
So I do not know if this is the last one. I know they've announced 2 more for next year, but I'm assuming this is the last one. As of recording this, I will not know until I've listened to it. But I thought we'd talk about the Purity storyline so far, and the storyline with Hebe, Sixth Doctor, Mel, and what's the name of the other character? The Professor character, played by, I think it's Imogen Stubbs, who plays Trisha McBride.
Mm-hmm.
And she appears in the second one. So I thought we'd talk a little bit like that. Now, you've only listened to the first volume so far. Meanwhile, I followed the whole thing so far. So we'll be able to discuss the first one, and I will simply tell you what happened in the second one, and you can give your opinions on what I have said. That's how we're going to have to do this. So the first one, I guess we class as Waterworlds, even though it's not part of the Purity title. It is still part of the Hebe character's arc.
Hebe Harrison.
It's nice to meet you. Do you work here on the rig?
Not exactly. Don't you know? Aren't you here to get us all home?
All? So there are more people here?
Well, yeah. There's 7 of us left.
Oh, everyone else has already gone home?
No. There are 7 of us left alive.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Sixth Doctor Adventures, Waterworlds.
An ocean on the moon.
Oh, Doctor, I'm speechless.
You're still talking.
Close as I get. Brilliant.
Does this belong to you? Are you part machine?
More like part action figure. I come with my own accessories.
My friend Hebe is an expert on marine life.
And you?
I'm an expert on everything else.
Particularly blowing his own trumpet. You mean I'm wearing a stolen body? What if the others find out?
Oh, the maelstrom! The maelstrom is coming!
Get off me! Get off me! Help!
And then there was one.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
So, what did you think of Waterworlds?
So I was excited for the initial kind of, because Six normally gets really good audios. He does really well, like audio drama wise. And obviously, one of the reasons why they probably had to do this was because they couldn't do any more with Lisa because she was ill. So they were like, oh, we'll give him a new companion. And I will admit that I've not really listened to any Six and Mel audios. Whenever I listen to Mel, she tends to be with Seven.
True. No,
Yeah, one of my favourite story lots with Mel though is the ones with Seven, Mel and Ace. So yeah, that's like older future kind of.
They did some new ones in they did some new ones in 2018 around that time, like Red. Was it Red Skies or Red something?
Red Planet. Yeah.
Red Planet.
Like,
yeah.
That was my first Big Finish actually.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I started with Big Finish. Was
another
Mel.
thing we've got in common because I started around that same time. I know because when I started listening to it much more, what you might call when I started listening to Big Finish religiously, the first monthly range that came out whilst I was listening to all of it was Red Planets. That's the first one that came out as I was doing my big marathon.
Yeah. Mine must have been in the same sort of time then. But as Sixth Doctor stories go, for me, bearing in mind he normally gets all the really good stories, I wasn't a massive fan of the concept of this one. I don't know why. I just didn't gel with the story. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
You know.
No, I get you. I get you. With Waterworld, a lot of them were to do with water, because Hebe.
Funny that.
Yeah, Hebe. What was it? I'm trying to remember it because it was how many years ago now was it that it came out? It was only last year.
Last year, yeah.
But she's working as a marine biologist.
Marine biologist. Yeah,
I think so. She's got a fascination with the sea, and a fascination is also her job. But as a result, the next two stories that follow are revolving around those sort of
sea stuff. Yeah.
And they were fun, and I do think I had a lot from them. There were definitely something which was like I felt like it was a calm before the storm kind of thing, and it certainly was.
Yeah.
And it was just nice, simple stories. They weren't like the massive 4-parters we have. They were basically an hour-long story split over 2 parts. So it's basically like looking at the Sixth Doctor era.
Yeah.
But I had my only issue with it, and the only problem is I feel awkward commenting on it, is because I liked Hebe, but there were certain elements where she was written a bit snappy.
Yeah.
And I get that, because you got Mel and Six get along very well at this point in their travels. So having someone to come in and shake things up a bit was actually quite good and quite interesting. The only reason why I had a couple of issues with it was because, and I think it was interesting to be explored, but I just feel like the way it was done could have been done better, which is obviously Hebe is in a wheelchair, and I think that's really good. I think
definitely 100%. Yeah,
obviously, I think the year before, actually in 2020, with the Eighth Doctor box set Stranded, they had their first trans companion. I think it's really, really good. I feel like in this volume, Mel would always be like, "Come on, let's go," and I think it worked for the first stories.
Yeah.
I know there's only 3 in here, so when I said the first stories, it's only 3. But Mel would keep forgetting that she's in a wheelchair, and I don't know if it was to do with Mel, if it was meant to be Mel innocently forgetting, but she forgot so often that it was and then obviously Hebe would be like, "Oh, hang on, wait for me," and then she would kind of snap at Mel, but there was a point where Hebe really, really snapped at Mel, and I thought. And Mel was kind of her, and she was saying, "I'm sorry, I'm just trying my best." And Mel at first was treating her like she was wounded, and she's like, "I'm not wounded. I'm not wounded. I just can't use my legs. That's it. I'm not hurt. I'm done. I'm done. Like I can do this.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah." And I feel like that's an important thing I think that's an important thing in terms of because the producer who makes this is in a wheelchair. Jacqueline Rayner, her name is.
Yeah.
She's in a wheelchair too, so I can understand why this story is very important to her. For me, it felt at times like it was in the same way that in series 10 of Doctor Who, Bill had to say, "I'm gay, by the way."
Yeah.
But it's not to the detriment of the character, because the character, in terms of the storylines they were representing, they've represented some very good storylines with regards to how disability is viewed. So like in Waterworlds, it was the assumption that Hebe was always in pain or needed help everywhere. And then
that's not necessarily the case. Yeah.
No, exactly. Like Mel said in one story, "Would you like me to push your chair?" And she's like, "Have I needed anyone to push my chair so far?" And then Mel would be like, "No, I was just asking in case you wanted help or anything." She goes, "I don't need help." That I can understand, and also I imagine you got to reflect on the fact that she's probably been asked that a million times by other people.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like it was just kind of lent on every episode. She was shouting at Mel.
This is where this is where I feel like I 100% salute Big Finish for kind of covering this ground, but this is where I think it would have worked better on screen, only because. Obviously, because of the audio thing, people kind of had to be reminded of the situation over and over again.
Yeah, I mean,
whereas if it
that's
was
the
on
thing.
screen, they wouldn't have had to have done that.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, a good point to make is that the actress who plays Hebe, who's played by Ruth Madley, she's appearing in the 60th.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that potentially is talked about. I reckon it will be referenced in some shape or form, but not. It'll be interesting to see what's done there. I can understand why it's had to be done and everything like that. I feel like in that case they both, if because I don't think it's entirely on the companion of Hebe Harrison. I don't think we can turn around and entirely say it's. I hate her because she kept saying it. She kept saying it because Mel kept bringing it up.
Yeah,
so it was a case of. I feel like Mel was done a bit of a disservice as well. She was used as the vehicle of, like representing the people who have kind of the stereotyped judgments and worries. And I feel like Mel has seen enough now to know that that isn't the case.
Yeah.
And the doctor never mentions it, and that's why I'm like, this is why it seemed odd to me. Like if the doctor's never mentioning it, but Mel is all the time, it just looks very odd. Whenever all the scenes that we're referencing with Hebe acting like this or speaking like this is always at Mel. So I feel like it kind of, if it put you off, it's not just because of Hebe, it's also because Mel's been written to bring it up over and over again.
Very true.
Because she wouldn't be saying it otherwise. And there are times where I feel like where Hebe would snap and then Mel would be like, I wasn't saying it like that. And then Hebe they'd actually have a nice discussion about it. And they'd talk, she'd say, I'm used to people saying that in a judgmental way. And they'd talk about it and they'd solve it. And that issue would never come up again. But then there are also times where Mel just carries on talking about her disability in front of her. And you're a bit like, okay.
Please stop, Mel.
Yeah. So that was Waterworlds, and I think that was a nice introduction. And to be honest, when you go on to the next one, they did tone down a lot of that, a lot of the bringing up of it. They introduced more of Hebe's friends, which is why it was less referenced about the wheelchairs, because those friends know her. There was a nice conversation with one of Hebe's best friends, who's called Elise, where she had a nice conversation with Mel and just told her to stop it, because Mel just was always like, but wheelchair. And it was like, yeah. See, and I get that from an audio perspective, like you said, it has to be mentioned, because on the cover art, it doesn't show her in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you do hear like the little metal rattling of the frame of the wheelchair as it goes along the ground. You hear footsteps and the wheels. So you kind of get that. And sometimes there are some nice times where they're kind of going through a field, and Colin goes, "Are you all right with this ground, Hebe?" And Hebe's just like, "Yeah, all good, Doctor, thanks." And you're like, "That's nice." That's like a nice reference. And then obviously you hear the wheels and everything like that. Like you're basically re-establishing.
Yeah.
But basically in this story, you have a character who's an anthropologist called Professor Patricia McBride, played by Imogen Stubbs. It's revealed later on at the end of that volume that she hates disabled people.
Oh.
She thinks they're not really the best. Her views are they will hold society back, and that we should be extinguishing anyone who's born with a disability. It gets
That's
honestly,
really dark.
Blimey. Yeah, she says it to Hebe, going like, but she goes, back in the old times, back in the old days, if a child was born with a deformity, they'd be killed. And it was like, and she's like, but now we're too complacent. She was very basically the antithesis of like right-wing thinking.
Oh God, yeah.
Colin has a lovely scene when talking to her. Because Colin is talking to her about something. Patricia's like, yes, exactly. And he goes, I know what we need to do. We need to do this. And Patricia's like, wait, what? And then she's like, yeah, we need to do this. She goes, well, what did you think I meant? And he went, oh, I thought you meant extinguishing all disabled people. He's like, what? What on earth? And then there's this big reveal, and then he has this lovely speech. And he talks about inclusivity. He talks about people who think differently and people who are differently abled. He doesn't even say disabled. He says differently abled.
And I'm sorry, but if any doctor's going to deliver that sort of a speech, it's Colin.
Colin is just great, and
so
he says that to Patricia and says, if you stand by your morals here, then you don't belong here.
Mm.
And then she goes to leave. Hebe follows her. She's not aware of the conversation. It was in the other room. And Hebe follows her going, where are you going? And then Patricia just turns around and gone, you shouldn't be alive. And then leaves. And you're like, what? What the fuck? So that at the end of that volume, she gets her hand on one of the time suits because a time suit crashes on Earth.
Mm.
And she uses that to go back in time and start meddling in the past and keeping those values alive. It gets very political. She ends up entering the political system and getting certain people in power who share her views so that she can do that. Because Hebe, at the end of the volume, fades from existence.
Oh, God.
And they're like, Hebe, no! So, yeah, that one, it very much goes into more about the prejudice about it. The first volume begins with the misunderstanding and the misconceptions.
Yeah.
The second one goes into the people who are against, and if they were given the power to have their own way, what would they do with it? And it's a shame because also, as the Sixth Doctor says in his speech, the Professor Patricia McBride in this, she's very, very clever, and Colin says, why are you so stupid then? If you're so clever like you are, and yet you've got this stupid mindset. Like he basically says that her thoughts are idiotic. And yeah, essentially then the follow-up volume doesn't have Hebe in it, but is about them trying to restore the timeline and figure out what got changed in what times. But Patricia McBride's very clever about it because she only does it in tiny little things. She changes one person's decision about whether or not to sign a piece of paper or not. Something you never really detect. And it just creates a ripple effect. It's not something huge like, I'm going to stop this person from becoming the Prime Minister. It's nothing like that. She changes one tiny event and it ripples out and it just cascades, domino type thing. Firstly, what are your thoughts on what I said about the second volume? Because I realise I'm going into the third.
No, to be truthful, I'm pondering whether I might get it because I've not even got it. Because I said I wasn't a fan of the first one, so I was kind of like, I probably won't bother. But I might dip my finger into that audio sphere.
It's very much something that now that the fourth one is out and you're starting with the second one, you won't have the gaps in between.
True,
You can just listen to them back to back if you wanted to. It's an interesting story. I feel like it's one of the ones where when the story is completely finished, you can appreciate the whole thing. But whilst it's going, you're a bit like...
In bits, you're a little bit like, yeah.
And that's kind of the problem that I feel like some people have had, because some people have reflected on Purity and gone, when you listen to Purity Undreamed, which is the second one, and Purity Unleashed back to back, it feels more continuous rather than separate volumes. The only problem is they didn't portray this as a series. They could have just called it Purity and then with a subtitle like this with that, but they haven't. And thus people have only sort of started to clock on that it's a series, and that's the problem. People have been reviewing
I will say this about Big Finish. They do have a habit of doing a series of things and not telling the people buying it. So you'll buy something and it will be part of an overlying story arc and you won't realise. Like the Mel 7 and Ace stuff, to be fair, because all the way through, obviously, Mel's basically messing everything around with that story arc. But if you like bought the last episode of that, it wouldn't make any sense because you haven't listened to all the other ones.
It's like the 7 and Ace Black and White saga with Hex.
Yeah.
Because that was a monthly range that went on and had breaks in between it. I was very lucky because when I listened to it, I would listen to the first 50 under one Doctor, and then go through the first 50 again, looking for only the Sixth Doctor ones, and you'd go through and through and through. And it's only then when I actually clocked on with listening to, I think it was between 150 to 200 on some of those releases, that I'm like, hang on, this is part of a story.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, right, okay, they never explained that. With this, when you know it's a series, you can kind of settle with it better.
Yeah.
The problem is that you don't. Like this thing, and it's 3 episodes per volume. So that when this 4th one's out, that makes it to 12, which is just like, you know, like a series of Doctor Who now.
Yeah.
That's the only issue, really, is that if they'd said Doctor Who Purity 4-volume series with, you know, Ruth Madley as Hebe Harrison and, you know, all this sort of stuff, that would have been interesting. The problem is they pitched it as individual volumes, so it wasn't until the end of the 2nd volume that you realised this was a continuous story. Waterworlds was definitely solo.
Yeah.
But when you get them Purity, like the final 3 are like a trilogy, but in terms of the Hebe Harrison stuff, that is very much a 4-part thing. Yeah. And basically with the 3rd one now, Patricia's lost her mind a little bit. The time suit also talks to her. But only she can hear it. At the end of it, I won't give too many more spoilers about this one, but this one's less focused on it's more focused on the right wing stuff, on the politicians.
Okay.
It kind of switches. It's basically, I think it's because I know that Big Finish has been doing a lot of allegories recently. With, like, you know what an allegory is, don't you?
Yes.
Exactly. So anyway, they've been doing a lot of allegories, which are basically like saying an allegory the equivalent of it would be when Torchwood did the many ways to kill in Middlesbrough, which was a Torchwood monthly range with Yvonne Hartman. In that one, a meteorite crashed on Earth and was spewing this fuming gas that was starting to spread across Middlesbrough, and the fumes were killing people. And Yvonne was trying to tell government officials, but they went, there is no meteor, there are no fumes. And it was a reflection on COVID.
Okay.
Like the fumes represent COVID, and there was a source. And they were like, it doesn't exist. It was that it was that kind of denial.
I get it, yeah.
I mean, it's like a mirror reflection. So with this, it was about right wing. It was almost like right wing politics, except in the concept of time travel and being involved in it. It looked like at the end that they reset things. But then plot twist, Hebe exists, but it's not the right one anymore, and Purity exists in a different way. No! But that's all you're getting on that one. You have to listen to it now.
Noted.
Now the 4th one is out called Purity Unbound, and Hebe isn't that one. But there's now it's an alternate timeline. But it was never explained what had happened to the timeline. It's just that Hebe is still disabled and alive, but Purity still exists. Purity is like an entity now.
Yeah.
But Patricia McBride now no longer exists. She merged the time suit so much that she just became this entity called Purity.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. Are there any other like Big Finish things that you've listened to recently that you wish to quickly give an honourable mention for?
Nothing new. I say I've been making my way through Six and Flip because obviously I'm writing Six and Flip at the moment. So I just listened to Vortex Fire and Vortex Ice, which I've not listened to in a while actually, but they're kind of one of my guilty pleasure ones. That one, but that's purely because it's like when I start writing Paternoster again, I'll probably go back and listen to Heritage because I just tend to listen to what I need to listen to at the moment. Does that make any sense?
Let's face it, in a couple of months, we'll be talking about that volume.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And you'll be leading it, by the way, not me. You've got to talk about continuity, not me. For once, I'm going to sit back and listen. But I've listened. I've almost finished listening to Torchwood Sigil. I'm on the last 15 minutes, and I had a load of work calls come in.
From Big Finish Productions, Torchwood Sigil.
That statue of a bird in the window.
Not really my line of business, but rather striking.
It's the pattern carved onto it.
Oh yes, the sigil. magnificent. What a piece of work. Buried for... I do like to be precise, but I'd say it's been buried for 3,000 years.
But, wait, it's been buried? Are you sure?
I am an expert in time.
Well, it's just... Are there others like it?
Oh, I've never seen anything like it. The sigil is unique. It's certainly never been in a museum. This was dug up, then buried again in a bank vault, until it found its way to my window. Why? Are you all right?
Oh, the pattern. I've been drawing it. That pattern, that actual pattern all my life. Since I was a child.
Yes. Impossible.
When we found it, or rather, it found us, it has been waiting for so long for release. We have the statue. This figure watches now, every day. We call, and it does not answer.
Something's coming! Oh! Birds! Oh, stop! Oh my god, stop!
I can't see! I just can't...
Big Finish. For the love of stories.
That one's... I find that, because that one's got Billis in. Because you've been...
Yeah.
How much of series 1 have you watched now, Torture?
I finished season 1. I've just started season 2.
So you know Billis's anyway now.
Yeah.
Billis is an interesting character because you don't quite know what he is. He's not an alien, he's a human.
Yeah.
But it's hinted at, especially in series 1, that he was given this gift, but we don't know who by. And he says in series 1, finale End of Days, he says he can walk from one time period to another as if he were entering another room.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character because, how do I put this? And it sounds really odd, and I mean this nicely. He reminds me a little bit of you.
In what way?
I don't know.
What's the context here?
I don't know, but like he's so particular. Like when not this isn't me giving examples here, but in terms of his character, he loves clocks and is obsessed with time and measuring it.
Okay.
And he will, when somebody, for example, in this current Big Finish I'm listening to, someone walks in wearing a digital Apple Watch, and he goes, get out. He tells them to get out of his shop because he's got a respect for time. And he likes measuring time. So, like, it's set in the same bookshop that was from End of Days.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting one. I like the idea of what he measures time, but it's obvious that he's not from the 21st century. Like, I get the feeling he has a Victorian element about him. Like when you see the way he's dressed, the way he moves.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I get the feeling that he only really hung around the 21st century for Torchwood stuff because that was the perfect time he found it, where he could open that rift and cause chaos. Any other time, Torchwood were too big, but because Torchwood 1 had just fallen, and Torchwood were in a bit of a disarray, he knew he could manipulate events to get the rift open. And that's what I mean. I don't think he was from the 21st century at all. He has a vibe of, and again, this isn't me comparing it to you. He has a vibe of him being ancient.
Cheers.
That's what I said. No, but I think
it reminds me of you. I think he's ancient. Cheers, Connor.
No, but
you dug yourself in this grave now.
I literally said before I said that it's not a reflection of you. But if you want to take it that way, feel free. I did say it was not a reflection of you.
Oh Christ! Yes, Connor.
Yes. But I think it might be just the element of the precise nature.
Yeah.
That he has about things. The fact that he doesn't seem quite from this time. He's very much. I feel like if I were to see him in anything, he'd be wearing a top hat walking down the Victorian street.
Yeah.
Like, he's got that vibe, and he doesn't quite belong, and he doesn't understand some things about the 21st century. So that's what I see in you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. 2 months ago, I taught you how to make a folder on a computer.
This is true.
And then you're like, I prefer gas hobs. What's all this electric about? That's what you're like.
You'd set that up on fire.
I like rations. That's what you're like. I eat a carrot and 2 fish cakes.
I only get
That's
one
enough.
egg a week.
Yeah, and you can only shower for 2 minutes. Like that's you. You're rationing everything. But like, no, I really enjoyed the story, and it's also going to be his last one because he's passed away, sadly. And it's a nice one because it's exploring him as a person a little bit, Billis as a person. Like in one scene, he has to go and drive somewhere, and they go, "Oh God, what have you got? An old motor car?" No, he's got a sports car.
Of course he has.
And they're like, "But you've got all those good clocks." And he goes, "No, I prefer the traditional measurement of time, but this is efficient. I like efficiency. And this is an engine, and this is an engine that's been refined, and I like this." And he went, "There's only 3 of these in the whole country." And they went, "How'd you get it?" And he went, "Yeah." And you're like, "Well, yeah, you probably just like teleported in and got in the car and teleported with it."
Mine.
That's probably what he did. But like, he was also talking about like, I like the idea of him because he's all about preservation. He likes to preserve things. So he was saying he's only got 1 of 3 in the world, and it's a shame and a disservice that the other 2 people happen to be idiots with money, and like you can't preserve things properly. So for him, he's as like because he takes those clocks from other times and brings them to his shop, so he can preserve them and they can continue to measure time and everything like that. And I just think that's really interesting. What was it he did? Was it in? I think it was in End of Days when he was talking to Jack and Gwen. He walked over and just moved the hand by a second, and he then just put it back again. And it's like he's got a very interesting tune to time.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But it's left so ambiguous as to what happened to him because he can travel in time as well. It's like he has such an understanding of it that he's able to just maneuver it as well as measure it.
It is a good concept. It is a fun concept.
It's been very tempting to just do like the younger adventures of Billis sometimes. But plus Murray Melvin's like the only person who could do it.
True.
He's got such you know what I mean? Like he's got such a perfectly sinister camp nature about him. But he also looks like the kind of person who you could really sit down and have a nice conversation with.
Yeah.
It's an odd one. Yeah. And also Time Slip Volume 4 has come out. And I talked about Time Slip Volume 3. I'm looking forward to that one. That one closes it out and they're going to no longer do any more Time Slip afterwards, which is a shame. But I want to be able to buy at some point the physical versions because I feel like a lot of people moaned about Time Slip when it came out, going, "Oh, this is such a vanity project." I'm like, isn't everything we do?
True.
Like, why do you think when Nick Briggs writes a Big Finish story, it's got Daleks in it? You know what I mean? It's like he's in it. Yeah. Or you know, like whenever he's so heavily involved in the second Doctor stuff, it's his favorite Doctor.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to be involved. You know, it's that sort of thing. Why was he the main producer when the Sixth Doctor and Jamie met? Because it's the second Doctor.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's that sort of stuff. And and that's the thing is everyone's got their own thing they want to do for themselves. So, Time Slip, I watched a few clips of it from the original show, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, it looks so awful now." No. This Hartnell's my favorite era because you can see. I can see as well how they've made it because I can imagine myself trying to get people to move and making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Like I know if I were to make that episode, it would have the same mistakes in it because like that just goes to show the budget. And ultimately nowadays you could actually make, as we've seen from some Doctor Who fans now, they can make the show even better than that now. But I like seeing also the story behind making it whilst you're watching it.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I've really gone off on a tangent. But yeah, what? I mean, good question, Abby. What are we going to review next month?
I don't know. What are we going to review next month?
I mean, I don't know why you asked then. We could always talk about. I'm just having a look now. There's Gallifrey War Room 2. There's the Fifth Doctor Adventures in the Night.
I'll probably get that. That'll probably be.
There's Rose Tyler, The Dimension Canon 3. There's Survivor's New Dawn, but I want to start from the beginning on that. That's
I do want to start. I do want to start Survivors, but I'll probably get the Fifth Doctor one because it's me.
There's also we've got to talk about the Once and Future one, haven't we?
Oh yeah, fair one. This is true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
There's also Torchwood Dog Hop, which is the dog sitting episode, and then there's there's a lot to talk about next month. There's Doomsday.
Oh Christ!
We got to talk about the one who's taken Julia Brenson's title.
Oh no! Do we have to? Can we just review Crimson Hunter? I'll just do that. So we were going to talk about Doomsday. However, we're going to talk about Crimson Hunter Volume 1.
I want to talk to someone about it because I want to kind of break down what it sounds like, because obviously all the others have just been kind of external media. We've not heard her.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, we've only seen like the comics and the little game thing come up.
It'd be interesting to see how she does it and how
it's
they
also
go about doing it.
It's also 8 and Charlie.
Yeah, there is that.
I think we've got quite a lot to talk about next month.
Definitely Once and Future and 7 and 8 and 7, 8 and Charlie 7,
and 5.
And 5.
We've got. I mean, that's the thing. We've got a lot of good things to talk about. And in October, it's probably going to be Pat Gang. What's coming out in October, actually? In October,
just Pat Gang.
Pat Gang.
Else. Just Pat Gang.
Once and Future with Christopher Eccleston and David Warner there.
Ooh, that'd be good.
Yeah, and then there's 2 Once and Futures coming out. And then there's the I need to listen to the Omega Factor from Big Finish. They kind of said they weren't going to do anymore, and then they've come back with a 4th series, and you're like,
we're not going to do anymore, however.
But I think it's like they have to leave it so long to make the money back to then go, okay, we'll make
Just
another
do
one.
more, yeah.
I think the main one we talk about for October will be Pat Gang, and I will probably want to talk about the Christopher Eccleston and David Warner one.
Yes, definitely. Okay.
They were both, David Warner's one was created during the Wilderness era, even though it's an unbanned one. He's from that sort of era, and then Eccleston was brought as the new one out of the Wilderness era, but the official one. There's also the Third Doctor Adventures, which has James Sutton's hand in it.
Yay, James Sutton's hand.
Have you seen that new cover of the Third Doctor?
I've seen the
It's
cover,
him holding his prop. It's him wearing a glove holding the prop. So that's Sutton's hand. So we got to watch it. So every time we use it, we can go, that's James Sutton's hand doing that. But yeah, and then they're being very quiet about the announcements on the Torchwood monthly range at the moment. Like they've not even announced the one for next month. Well, so October. They usually announce them quite, but they waited until for Torchwood Sigil. It got both announced and released at the same time.
Same time.
But I think that was because it was his birthday, so it was a birthday surprise. But they're being very, very. It's interesting. I don't know what they're doing with Torchwood. Anyway, well, do you have anything else you want to say about Purity, apart from the fact that you will commit to listening to it all?
I will. No, I'm good.
I will ask you next month how Purity went. Cool. All right. Anyway, thank you all for listening, and I return to, I believe, myself and Daniel in the future.
Bye.
Bye.
What is going on?
My name is the Doctor. We are in dire need of assistance.
Doctor, it's you.
And welcome back to the podcast. Hello, Daniel. We're back.
We're back. And I'm back. Everyone is back.
Yay.
Together once more.
So, we are basically very, very, very near the end of the podcast now. So, what are your plans for the next month or so? Are they finishing off like edits, or I suppose you did announce something recently. I suppose you'll be working on.
So I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, finish Marinus and get that out before or after the 60th. But we also have a small audio coming out called Void of the Damned, which is me playing all 3 versions of my Doctor. There's the English, the Fallen, and the Irish Doctor. They all get to meet. But how is the question?
Oh, indeed, yes, because you put that up today, actually, as of recording. It was today.
Yeah.
A little cover tease of that.
Yeah,
which is very interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be like it's a very simple story. It's nothing like big. It's only a 10-page script, but it's something I always want to do. So we've always talked about how there's multiple versions of my Doctor out there. Not as much as George, because he gets everywhere.
That's true. Yeah, there's
everywhere.
There's a couple of blonde doctors. There's a fairy tale doctor, and was it Nautic Doctor as well?
I believe so. I don't know how many he has.
I think someone counted it was like 6 or 7.
Oh, George.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is always something I wanted to do, and because also November is slightly it marks 10 years since I started playing the Irish Doctor properly.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be nice to incorporate every incarnation I've ever played into this one little short audio. What is it says it's a short trip on it. It is more of a full cast audio. It's not like audiobook. I'm doing it in sort of like the audio drama medium way of doing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
How about yourself, though, sir?
I am going to I will carry on working on the 60th. We're still also actively working on Torchwood Volume 3, which has been delayed to no end, trying to get that done. But as I've mentioned before, we're not sticking to such a strict schedule from next year onwards. Yeah. We are going to be we're not going to sit back and just let things take their course. We're still going to actively work on things. But if they don't, we don't have to worry about, going, oh, no, it's going to finish really soon. Oh, God. We're still going to actively be working on projects, but when they're done is when they'll come out now, as opposed to keeping to strict schedules or just completely leaning back and letting things fall behind. We're not going to let that happen. But at the same time, Torchwood Volume 3 does a lot in it that if it doesn't come out, I've now counted will delay 5 volumes.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I didn't know there was 5 volumes of Torchwood in the making.
No, it's not 5 volumes of Torchwood. It's other things that kind of create continuity.
I see.
As I mentioned in podcasts before, we pre-recorded about 3 volumes of Mastermind in advance. And Volume 2 obviously is out, but Volumes 3 and 4 are fully recorded, and they have little continuity items attached to them that Torchwood Volume 3 covers. And that Volume 3 is now fully recorded and fully edited for the last 3 months and can't come out.
Right.
So that's fun.
Well, hopefully we'll get back on track soon. Sutton.
Yes, indeed.
But anyway, it's good to be back on the podcast, because I did miss it over the last year. I mean, it's been exactly a year from, I think, nearly enough to the day of recording this.
Yes, because what happened was you weren't in the July one because of your wedding, and because your wedding was not on the last weekend of July, it was the second to last weekend, which is usually when we would record. And obviously you weren't around, and then after that you were definitely not around, and then it was only when you came back in August did we then very quickly record it, and we were talking about Supers Volume 1 and Devlin Volume 1 back then.
Doesn't a year fly by too quickly?
Yes, I agree. Indeed. But nonetheless, once again, I want to say thank you to our Patreons: Anya Coyle, TT Productions 23, Chelsea Lagan, Delta Effects, and Joe Eddings. And on that note, I would say thank you very much to sweet Daniel, and welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, sir.
And I suppose that's it for another month. Next month, what are we going to be talking about next month? I think we're continuing to talk about Inquisition of a Time Lord, and we'll also, ironically, have John back to talk about the Mastermind special that's coming out, which is the 5th and final episode of Volume 2, which of course started in January. But this is the tie-in to the Dwem 60th that has been hyped up for the last 2 years now.
Yes. Lots of exciting things to come.
Yeah, the next 2 the next 2 podcasts even are going to be very, shall we say, packed and hopefully hype, as that young people say.
Yo,
lad, it's hype.
We should end the podcast, dude, before we be embarrassed with ourselves.
Oh God, I imagined you in the hat saying that.
Why don't I get the hat? I don't
want to see you in the hat. I don't.
I want to start wearing the hat again.
I'm so annoyed that I've reminded you about the hat. You told me you'd never forget it.
Oh, well, I did forget it, and now you reminded me of it, so thank you.
Brilliant. Well, nonetheless, whilst I now cringe into into dust, I say farewell to everyone. Thank you for listening to this month's edition of the podcast, and we will both see you next month.
With
farewell.
The hat.
Oh, no.
Bye-bye.
So, is that a past you or a future you?
Past.